Hey everyone, bless up. Happy Sunday to you. I'm inside of the house today, got my hat on. It's -9 outside. And I've got a couple things I wanted to go over. I've been sitting here revising my second book called Detox and Heal Your Thyroid, wearing my Nope, Not Today shirt. And the topic of today is called A Prescribed Way of Life. Now, I use the term prescribe and I use it in the past tense, meaning already prescribed, because historically and historically, because there's his and hers and, things keep changing in the world, this was done to us by force, okay? The past tense is we are where we are today because of what happened a long time ago. Now, this would end up being a 4-hour live stream, which I don't really want to do. And you don't really want to sit down for 4 hours, or maybe you do. But I'm just going to show you a couple of the books off my bookshelf here behind me. One of them is this one, and it's called The Chalice and the Blade by Riane Eisler. Riane Eisler actually lived through the Holocaust. And she's an elder to myself that I greatly respect. And she's also a part of an organization called Partnership Studies. I'm going to take my recycled bottle of water here. The second of two books that I want to be able to show you, because I recommend them so highly. You know what? Give me 1 second. I'm going to let her know I am on now. There we go. So we'll let Kim know that we're on right now. Oh, bless up. Kim's here probably. Okay, so the second book I want to mention is a copy given to me by my grandmother in 1976. And look it's broken, so I keep it in this a plastic bag because I don't want to lose it. And I've read it several times to remind myself. And it is called When God Was a Woman. You can see one of the dogs a long time ago got the corner of it. And I'm going to show you something kind of interesting here. Well, to me, because my maternal grandmother, Etna, is no longer around. But I'm going to show you on this kind of broken spine book here that it says, to Karen from Grandma. Can you see it? I'll let it focus for a minute. Okay. So Riane Eisler and Merlin Stone are both a couple of authors. Merlin Stone is no longer around. She passed and is with the ancestors as of 2011, I believe. I believe that's correct. She put on a backpack and traveled over to Turkey, which formerly was known, bless up Marky, bless up Kim, formerly known as Sumer. That's where we got the word summer. And so a prescribed way of life means that you have to take a look at your history and your her story. Now, if you read Riane Eisler, what you would get in summation here, as briefly as I can possibly do it with all due respect to her because she's an amazing goddess and lived through the Holocaust, is that we had tyrannical battle axe clans that actually came and rode over the Caucasus Mountains and pulled women out of the temples, women who ran the agriculture and the medicine and were the healers, women who were oracular, they were oracles, they were prophets. And it's my opinion that much of the Bible contains our stories. We were brown women living in these temples. And women were pulled out of these temples by their hair, drug out. So the story that you hear often about Jezebel and how she was a whore and a slut and a harlot and all these things, and drugged by her hair into town and shamed and defamed. I'm kind of looking at Pablo. Pablo, what are you doing, buddy? Are absolutely the reverse. And the same thing, I believe, is actually true about Samson and Delilah, which you may have heard me mention before. Okay, so a prescribed way of life, to prescribe something, I want to read to you for just a moment here because I pulled it up. I'm going to put my reading glasses on, and then maybe after I get rid of my parasites, I won't have them quite so much. Okay, but prescribed actually is a past tense, right, as I told you. And the old definition, the late Middle English, is in the sense to confine within bounds. It's also a legal term meaning to claim by prescription, okay? Direct in writing or from the word before right. So prescription carries a lot of connotation with it, and it's a connotation that we really need to know. So now the prescribed way of life had to do first with force, and second by creating a uniform response to that force. So if your people have been killed off and drug out, and sometimes up to 1,000 people a day, per Riane Eisler and Merlin Stone, were killed in these tiny villages where people were cooperative, compassionate, loving, and helpful. And I think we all get an idea about what's really going on here, right? You can read through the lines without everyone directly saying it. So here we are in Mesopotamia, in Sumer, and these communities are all over, and these battle axe Indo-Aryans, as they're described by Riane Eisler in the book, ride over the mountain ranges and come and drag these women out of the temples. And to make a long story short, today you have the ability to band a woman around her heart finger and place her into marriage, and we celebrate it. We still wear the white dress. We still think, that it's ideal to have a virgin. And unfortunately and sadly, as an elder woman myself, I'm going to speak up because I've read these books, because I've met a lot of these people, because I was raised this way from the early 60s forward by women who carried this knowledge through the sacred chalice and the cup. And there's no way in hell I'm going to sit there and just bow out and not say anything when we're living in a world where women are becoming progressively more objectified and subjectified. It's like all of a sudden we're going backwards as we start to reach into more and more, patriarchal domination. So these books talk about patriarchy and patriarchal domination as opposed to matrilineal societies, meaning that the name was taken from the female. There was no such thing as a bastard. All of the children were parented by the community because you could trust just about everyone. Everyone loved everyone and was cooperative because you didn't run to the bank for money. You didn't run and stick someone in a box in a prison and then use them for cheap government service contract labor to be farmed out. We didn't test them with the type of a Kool-Aid to make sure that they wouldn't get an erection in prison, okay? Big up. That is true facts. Thank you. So in combination in my life, coming through a lot of experiences, going to other countries by myself on a scant budget, because I just did, and having developed the intuitive intelligences that I do, made me a bit of an outcast for the majority of my life. We're coming up to a time where it's going to be absolutely crucial to have those few voices speak strongly like myself. And I'm being beat down through some hideous stress right now, but I'm still here. And you're going to see me, you're going to watch me be able to regenerate too. So, okay, first we had the force, right? And then we have the fact that people uniformly comply. So now if your ancestors were absolutely wiped out and you were one of maybe 5 or 10 girls that were under 15 that were taken into a family, into a man's home, and if you had a father that was still living and cared about you, that father at most would have to give 50 shekels of silver for you so that that man could buy you. It was that man's goal. Remember, these are the Battle Axe clan. They're Indo-Aryans. To breed you as often as possible, because if he could breed you as often as possible, you would then produce more and more and more cheap or actually slave labor for his land. So in order to grow his wealth, in order to grow his personal commodities, his gardens, his sowing, his, land, improve his home, woman got up and she worked from sun up to sundown. She worked relentlessly. And there is where you have the image of the witch, green-faced, warts on her nose, because she was so minerally depleted. She was so deranged from having child after child after child, year after year. It was so completely counterintuitive from anything that ever happened before that I heard about growing up and was carried down secretly, woman after woman after woman. But it came to a point that even when I was born in 1961, women had forgotten. They weren't telling their daughters, and certainly not their granddaughters, and their daughters were starting to say, oh, you know. And reason is because the churches have set up a system, religion. Let me not say the churches, let me back up. Religion, certain aspects of certain religion have set it up in such a way that you don't dare do anything that resembles divining. So, excuse me, that's where you had the force, and now you have the uniformity. You have people for thousands and thousands of years that are scared to death, and now, just like Jim Crow and all of the different slavery institutional mechanisms, the people are going to just, that's the way we've always done it. So that's the way we've always done it. It's kind of like getting people to break the habit of the protein and calcium mythos. You know, it's like trying to get people to understand we always had shamans. We always had oracles, and there's nothing wrong with us. We are the ones that really want to be the guide, okay? So now I have a couple of notes here. After the force and the uniformity came the radio. The radio was used as another means to keep people in absolute compliance with what the dominant paradigm was supposed to be according to plan. After the radio, right? And what did I say here? After the uniformity in the radio came the television, right? Or Peter Tosh calls to tell a lie, okay? So we started showing people all kinds of images and role models to follow. This is what a good woman does. She puts on an apron, you know, she mixes up cakes with Betty Crocker. She stays home with her children, but the paradigm starts to change in such a way that it weakens you. So now the 70s come along, the late 60s and the 70s, and I remember this, and it's bra burning and liberation for the female. And they're doing all this because they know the female is feeling the oppression. She's feeling that she doesn't get equal pay for working if she has to go out and work, and she's not living under, you know, the ring and everything of the man, which I'm not saying it's always bad. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that it was historically, it was horrible that 12, 9, 10, 12, 14-year-olds would be brought into a home and basically work as a servant and basically, you know, a chattel slave. Women, I did family law for 18 years, and women were identified as chattel. It was property. A marriage contract is a chattel contract or a property contract for a woman. Okay? Now, after TV, you have what you have in the times that we all remember, which is social media. So you go on, and there are accounts and loads and loads and loads of accounts on your social media that are set up as traps. You know, that's the modern day terminology for it. The music, the beats that you put in your ear, the clubs that you go to. And I've seen them all, even as recently as 5 years ago. I've gone to some of the clubs, you know, with a friend and seen, you know, seen what I've seen. And it's denigrating, and it's destructive, it's divisive, it's all those things. So we had the social media, okay? The social media shows you a dress code. It shows you what trends are supposed to look like. It is very prescriptive because the television and social media both call out prescriptions in the way of drugs, which drugs is another name for code, okay? So you have a diagnostic, building on yesterday's live stream. I asked you to look up agnostic, which means not knowing, have no ability to know, not connected to God, right? So when you go in and you get a D-I-E, agnostic, you are going in and you are surrendering to what you perceive to be an authority, okay? And this is how the modern day church, the modern day doctor, the modern day veterinarian, the modern day schools, and all of these industries are set up is to submit to authority. And that's why you used to see the bumper sticker in the 90s in Santa Cruz. It says, subvert the dominant paradigm. The dominant paradigm always is the thing you don't want to go with. You don't want to go with what the herd is going with, okay? All right, so I wanted to say also, let's see, oh, all of your idioms, how you connect, et cetera, okay? So there needs to be a time in life that you have just to set up your personal habits, to be able to connect with real people, to be out in nature. But more and more and more, I showed you on my Naturally with Karen Facebook page what happens when you step into an MRI, a type of a body scan that uses extremely powerful magnets. If you consider for a moment that you live in what is allegedly an electromagnetic or a capital EM universe, plantation, plane, linear earth, flat earth, whatever you want to call it. I'm not here to decipher that right now or to discuss it. You live in what is electrically magnetic. You're living waters inside of yourself, like my conversation with Dr. Watts on Friday and the many more I've had with him, and the number of books I've read and highlighted by Andrew Cutler, and the neurologist I met with in my early 20s when I talked about what was going on with people that had had extensive amounts of PCP, right? What happens to the brain when we take some of these drugs? Yes, Brother Val, bless up, water has memory. So then I got to know immediately when Dr. Masaru Emoto's work came out, and I got to see how water was influenced by thought because of the oscillations of thought, because of the fact that you are living waters. Water has memory. You see me consistently talking about the fact that the blood that's been shed, even in the United States, it's a corporation, it's a firm, no different than England has a monarchy, which calls itself the firm. These are all firms. These are all corporations that are farming groups of people within zipped codes, okay? So you are living waters inside. When you go into this MRI, it pulls and destabilizes your living waters. And it's actually kind of like Kim showed us on her page with that movie I watched a long time ago, and probably many of you did too, called The Dark Crystal. Okay, she, incidentally posted the Dark Crystal and what she was finding around the same time I was posting about the MRI machines and sucking the life force energy out of humans. I also in 2015 went to become Kemetically certified through Yasir Hotep at the House of Hotep. Always had a passion for Egyptian, Kemetic, African knowledge, right? And was always taken to the Rosicrucian temple by my grandmother and given my first Isis necklace, which now to me is an Osset necklace, right? But people don't know, and we upgrade all the time because we're flexible and we're still learning. So if you learn and you look at the water symbols and those hieroglyphs, it's going to start to really make a lot of sense to you without also going too deep on that, okay? So I had a couple of texts today which were really kind of interesting, talking about a prescribed way of life, right? And I'm in a special group that I paid to bring on testing onto my website. And there's all of this evidence there, right? Blood never dies. Absolutely, Kim. Never. It never dies. In fact, you should know that blood and water and minerals never die. They never disappear. They only change form. Okay, so we are immortal in every sense of the word, okay? But if you're like me and you go out and you say, well, I learned this stuff in the 60s and I kept reading Powerful Women and I went on to get Kemetic certification, and they will bounce you right out. I've had my son's doctor laugh at me and say, are you like manic or something? And I go, I want to say, are you out of your freaking mind? Are you so completely constipated with the American Medical Association that you have absolutely no clue? You're so clueless. You have no idea that you're prescribing young adults Ambien that you won't listen when I tell you that the majority of the people in a mercury compromised EPA suggested hotspot have a thyroid imbalance. But instead, you're going to wait and only test someone's TSH, their thyroid stimulating hormone, that comes from your pituitary gland. And I don't know if you're watching my Naturally with Karen Facebook page, but that's why I'm introducing you to the pituitary adenomas. These are almost always non-cancerous cystic nodular tumors that grow on your tiny little pituitary gland, but they have everything to do with your luteinizing hormone, your follicular stimulating hormone, your thyroid stimulating hormone, your TSH. And so if you're not sleeping at night, if you're having these problems, and if you were an infant that was raised on baby formula and baby laxatives and sitting in a stroller and sitting in front of a radiating television, and then you grew up eating wheat for the first 15, 20, 25, 30 years of your life, and you had milkshakes and candy and dead animals, slabs of dead animal, you bet you're suffering. Okay? So the prescribed way of life is to say, you've got X syndrome or X diagnosis. Now, we're going to prescribe this for you. And the American Medical Association has made it in such a way that you look on the screen and it's like you've got 4 or 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 or 10 different choices of what medication. Well, since the 1970s, I've been saying there's no such, that's not medicine. There's no such thing. Medicine is what I get up and take a swig of in my cupboard that Sis Kim posted, the ginger and thyme syrup that I'm cleaning my lungs. Well, why would I need to clean my lungs if I know everything that I know? Because our children are going out there and they are falling prey to the legal doping that I posted yesterday, which is a food industry of donuts and burgers and wheat buns, and the clown, the white-faced clown, the Ronald McDonald's and all of the others in the world, the Burger Kings and all that, are laughing in our face because they know that it's a numbers game. Numbers and numbers and numbers of people. Our children are going to go through there because all of their friends are going to go through there because it's cheap to go through there. So we shouldn't have homeless people. We have houseless people. And I've been one of them a couple of times in my life. I've been someone who's been houseless. And you know what? I learned from it. I've been someone who's carried a great deal of privilege. I'm in a white skin bag. I got to work as a paralegal in an attorney office, driving a BMW, carrying a briefcase, but you won't see me put a pair of leather shoes on my feet. This is a fake leather. It's a, what do you want to call, faux leather. Okay, it's actually a freedom fighter hat that I've had for many, many years because I've cut my dreadlocks and I'm regenerating my hair. In fact, I'm thinking about rebuilding myself, as Ross Flacco and I were speaking 3 nights ago. He said, now you have to rebuild yourself. And I said, well, that's okay. I sacrificed my dreadlocks for a damn good reason. And so I'm a mother and I'll always be a mother. And sometimes our children, beyond just the toddler and all those things, sometimes very steep problems come into our lives that take almost all of our energy to push through. But I'm going to keep pushing. And I'm going to keep doing what I need to do, despite the fact that there are times I feel like I can't do it anymore. So sometimes when I tell you guys I can't talk, I just can't right now, it's for damn good reason. Val, I hope you're listening right now. There's times that I just can't. In the last year and a half, it's been extremely draining, but I'm doing my best to stay on board. So I'm going to keep bringing medicine. I'm going to keep bringing the truth. I have another person that said, well, how many topics could you possibly share, Shaman? And I'm like, you know what? I have an endless number of topics. I've been around for 58 years this year, and I've been digging and researching and checking and philosophy courses and you name it. And I know that my gathering will benefit other people. Okay? So I'm located at naturallywithkaren.com. You can see my links on the side of the live stream here. If I didn't see your question, I'm sorry. I'm not avoiding you in any way. I will check it as soon as I end here. Shelter, and they feed donuts, coffee, and sugar. Okay, so Val is a man who's often living in Duluth, Minnesota. And Val and I have met in person many times. And I myself, like I said before, have been houseless. And it is damn rough to be without a home. I have 2 extremely large dogs and a very tiny dog, and a couple of adults living with me in an 800 square foot house in an area that I really don't want to stay put in. So it's everything I could do to get the place ready, and again, try to sell it this spring. Oh, thank you, Marky. Thank you. I'm going through a lot and I'm really stressed. So I could look a lot better than I do right now, but it's really, really, really intense. It's something I just could have never even imagined. Okay. But I'm also going to write about that too. And it's put my books on hold for 2 years. So they're going to be better. They're going to be more brilliant. And give thanks. Give thanks, Kim, Marky, and Val. I really appreciate you guys. So what do? Is we call people poor people. We call them immigrants. We call them refugees. We call them slaves. We call them all sorts of things. And we allow these younger folks that are disconnected, like my own, okay, to go around and say, ooh, yuck, gross, what a cover up, go in the bathroom. No, women should be able to feed their children outside without it evoking any sexual perversion or any weirdness. There shouldn't be rapes going on. But for the introduction of fake synthetic hormones into our environment well over 100 years ago, introduced into animals that you eat today, we wouldn't have sexual perversion. We wouldn't have that. Yes, for sure. Useless eaters, Val. If you're going to have people in a houseless shelter, so they can have a shelter, it's 9 or 10 below zero here, or it was when I checked my phone 2 hours ago. It was 9 below zero. So it doesn't mean I have to stay inside the whole time, but I'm conserving my resources so that hopefully I can relocate. I've been trying to do this, and then something else comes up and is destabilizing. And I have my ideas about why that's happening. You might have your own. But we have people in houseless shelters, and what are they being fed? Wheat, cheese, donuts, and everything else, because we want to keep them extremely manageable, because the people that you find that have the least resources are the ones that you should probably say to yourself, wow, that's probably a person I could trust the most. Your people out there that are absolutely fabulously wealthy, it doesn't mean we don't trust them. But what I'm saying is sometimes the stepping stones that they took to get there were maybe not always as scrupulous as we might want them to be. Okay. I am very, very interested. I know how to rebuild myself like Ross Flacco or Fitzroy Floyd. And I talk quite a bit. He and I and Marky and Kim are some of the closest on Facebook for me, right? And Val in person. He knows that I gave up a big sacrifice and that I will have to rebuild myself. And my hair is coming in thick and nice. And I'm taking the winter time to wear a hat or to be at home and just leave it be down and let it be curly and nappy all over the place, because it's got a really big, curly to it, which means I'm on the right path. So it's not stick straight. All right. So a prescribed way of life is not a way of life that we want. We want a life that's organic and connected, and a life that is guided by the ancestors, because they never left. If you can make the commentary down below that blood never dies, that the living waters are always there, that memory and cellular memory never goes away, then when I hear people speak about ghosts and witches and all these things, I say, you're really misguided, because the ghosts, really what you're feeling are cellular memories, or you can listen and you can hear, but definitely it's a different situation. Witches are what they called us to burn and etch the memories into us, that it wasn't okay to be healers and grow food and be women that were powerful and autonomous. We don't want to be powerful so we can step and trot all over men, so we can rape men. We want to beautify and glorify and empower men. We want our men to be as powerful and strong and brilliant as possible. Okay? So there is a trans agenda. Please stop calling me transphobic. If that's even remotely in your thought stream, I wouldn't do it if I was you. I would back off right now because I'm not a weak person. Okay? I'm definitely not a weak person. Okay? There is a trans agenda. First, the agenda was to change you, rearrange you, like Lauryn Hill talks about, right? And even rearrange you. You're being rearranged moment by moment into something you might not even recognize. So it takes us to stand up, pull back the proverbial curtain, and realize we have work to do. Passionate, fun work to do to rebuild. Okay? So I'm going to say so long for now. If I missed any questions, I'm going to look for them. This is my $3 Nope, Not Today shirt that Zawa found for me the other night. Flexibility, but adherence to a pure natural is this. Absolutely. We need to remain flexible. We have absolutely give thanks, Kim. Give thanks to Pure Luminosity. If you haven't subscribed, please immediately go over and subscribe to Pure Luminosity. Please understand and overstand that there needs to be change and real change, and you're not going to get it through your television. You're not going to get it through prescriptions. You're not going to get it through social media most of the time. We're going to do what we can do here using YouTube and use the technology that's here. But just understand and overstand that at any time they could pull that from us. So we want you to learn as fast as you can. We want you to share because you know things we don't know. And remain one heart, no weak heart, okay? All right. So give thanks for